I've always made my own cover art for all my bands. Not just photography, but sometimes paintings too. So it became more and more important for me to do my own art, and then I realized that I could do something abstract, and that just came to me like a revelation from unknown sources. And then I became more comfortable by painting and showing my works, because I'm very self-critical. So usually I have hundreds of paintings at home that are not finished or I'm not satisfied with. I usually just burn them, because I will never show someone something that I don't feel is completed. My main inspiration forever is nature, just being in nature, and I see something that I try to depict in an honest, personal way, but also through my mother, who is a painter herself and educated in lithography. Yeah, I bring my piano compositions with me to have in the background, and then it usually starts with that I put up my hair, and I cut off a part of the hair that grows under the lower half of the scalp, and I use that hair as instead of a brush, because I never use regular brushes when I paint. I use my hands, branches, and different leaves, and my hair. Well, it's like a connection to my roots, because in the past, and one of my other bands, Life Lover, it was a bit more destructive scene, and that was over a decade ago. So I was, of course, a very different person, and that's also that was the gateway for me as well to start painting, because my first paintings were just minimalistic, that I gathered in my blood on a plate or in a bowl from my woods, and then I realized after a while I needed more blood to make proper paintings, so I got syringes so I could get bigger volumes of blood out of me in a safe way, and that was about what got me started into painting. So sometimes I make special editions of paintings with my blood, because it's an interesting and very meditative thing for me to do. It's like a really slow dance. It's one of the leading points in my life, since I'm mostly known as a musician or a composer, and I never, for a hypothermia, I never sit down with a piano or a guitar and play something to create a song. My songs are something I get from nature when I'm out walking and wandering. I hear music in my head when I look at the different plants and walk through the woods. I hear music, and it's like classical music, but I'm not trained in making classical music. So I'm making my version of classical music into black metal and post-rock and down-tempo, and I translate the strings and the voices I hear in my head into melodies on guitar or vocals, or any other instrument that I may have access to and that I find suitable for the song or for the album. While with Consider Suicide, it's often that I have silence in my home and I paint, and from the painting I get ideas for melodies, because I always make certain patterns and movements when I paint, and that creates songs. They are usually written in the night or in the morning after being up all night, because night is very inspirational for me, and it's often connected to a full moon, and in many cases it can also be inspired by my wanderings and meditations, and Also intoxication can be very inspiring for me, because it's kind of another form of elevation, and that translates into either Swedish or English lyrics that I write that I feel will fit to a certain mood that I feel from a song. So I try to describe the feeling and atmosphere of that song and translate that into words. Being an artist is something much more destructive than being alone, and it's something that you can only experience it. You can't really learn it. It's once again like it's like breathing, and there are many different ways to breathe, and some are much harder than others. It's like you're walking on the street or walking up a mountain. You can make the choice, because not everyone wants to or has to climb a mountain. I have to, but most people don't. I would like it to be like a gateway for them, because not everyone here has the access or ability to go out in nature like I can. But through my photos and my paintings, they can in a way see the things that I have seen, and create their own idea of how wonderful and spectacular and beautiful that some places within and beyond my mind is, and they find that beauty within their own minds, and that's what I like to bring to them and to as many as possible. That's why I keep returning here and to some other countries that I have a very good fan base and support in, and I just keep going, because I'm never done. Solitude and silence, and I have many wanderings of countless hours through the countryside of Sweden, and I live in a very isolated area. It's not a lot of people. Like the village where I live is around 300 people, and that village by itself is 10 kilometers or 1.5 hour walk from the closest city. So if I want to buy groceries or something, I have to walk for total 3 hours, and that's just what's normal to me. And to get to that town, you can either walk on a regular road with cars and people, or you can walk through the forest, and I think you can guess what I choose. It's very rare for me when I travel, I'm a completely different person, because then I have to be a bit more extrovert, and I have to some extent be social and more active on social media and things like that. But when I'm at home and by myself and being myself in the most pure way that I can be, then I'm isolated. I have days without talking to anyone. I can have weeks without hearing another voice from another person, and it's very rare for me to have a day when I'm not outside in the nature for a walk, and it can be anything from 1 to 3 or 4 hours, just exploring woods and finding new paths. It's one of my passions, and of course in Sweden we have a lot of different nature and different forests, and that means also like foraging different herbs and berries and things I can either cook with or paint with, and often both, because one thing that I have started appreciating in the last decade is making my own wine and my own beer. So that's something, another ritual that's connected to my paintings and my music. Not really. It's the thing that has changed my life and that always inspires me is silence. Just pure silence, and that's hard to find here. But that's why I live in the woods. for me it's impossible to not have a spiritual kind of view on it. But it's not a religion. You can be spiritual without being religious, but you can't be religious without being spiritual. That's my view, and for me, just that kind of constant connection with nature, that's what I believe in. Because that's where, in the end, that's where we all come from, and that's where we're all going to return. I like to recommend that they learn to be alone, in silence, in solitude, and to embrace that emptiness that can take you to. Because when you choose it yourself and when you immerse yourself in it, it can be something transformative and very powerful. So it's a positive thing to be alone. It's not bad to have days or weeks or months, sometimes of your life, to be alone, and you should embrace that. You should dare to not constantly be around people, and it's okay to be poor sometimes. You don't have to have a great job your whole life. You have plenty of time to make a career, but to have a career that you're satisfied with personally and that you receive great joy from and satisfaction, you also have to know yourself first, and to really know who you are and what you want to be. And I think the only way to really get that kind of knowledge and wisdom is to be alone for a while. It starts with me walking in nature, and that itself is a kind of a meditation for me. And I usually do breathing exercises in a rhythmic fashion when I walk by myself in the woods, so it becomes also a ritual. And that's what I like to call ritualistic meditation. I've chosen a lot of solitude by my own will, so I feel very comfortable. There is nothing destructive about solitude for me, but I understand it has for others, and that's why I tell them the advice that I give them, because they're not necessarily not wrong, but they have the wrong idea about what's bad or what's good. They have to erase all that they have learned from being a child, because that's what you learn when you're around people in society, in school, at a job. Then it's of course a negative thing to be a solitary person and an introvert. But that doesn't apply when you're alone. And many people forget that you have to learn to be a different kind of being when you're alone, and you have to erase all those ideas and the definitions and redefine what emptiness and solitude really is. And that is what creates a positive experience instead of a negative one, and that's a positive form of destructive behavior, because self-destructive behavior doesn't have to be something negative. It can be a very useful and powerful transformation process.